Martin needs no introduction. He's the worst chess bot known to mankind. But just how bad is bad? As a humble 1200 rated player myself, today I'm going to find out just how many rooks I need to defeat this bot. Okay, starting out with one rook here against Mr. Martin. We're gonna just go d3. Okay, we do see a king. What? Pushing the king pawn? That is a very interesting opening, but I will not question it. Okay, and immediately right off the bat, we do get a free pawn, so I am gonna take that. I'm gonna have to take every free piece I get because with just a rook, it's gonna be quite difficult to win this game. Okay, bishop to a6 gets played. I think I'm just gonna have to move the rook along the third rank because I'm not gonna get much free pieces here. Okay, we do see e6 come out from Martin. This obviously attacks the rook, so I will have to move the rook. I can't take this bishop because the knight defends it nicely, so we're just gonna move over to g4 and the check comes out. So I have two legal moves here. This one doesn't seem all that bad. I guess this check, king to f2 looks better, but then this check, and then obviously I lose the knight, so I have to go here to prevent the fork. And we do see bishop e2. That might be a free bishop. I think it actually is. If I take this, there's no funny checks here, right? Because the queen can't really do anything. Okay, so it's a free bishop. We're gonna take that, and this pawn looks to be free, but the question is, should I take it? And the answer to that question is maybe, but am I gonna take it? Absolutely. Okay, knight h5 comes out, attacks the rook, so obviously we have to move the rook back, and I'm thinking we just move the rook to maybe like g4, attack the bishop. There is obviously this check and this check that are threatened, so let's just move to a square that covers both checks. Ooh, rook comes over, and that's just gonna be a free rook. Like, I could take this bishop. Actually no, because the knight defends. That would have been bad, blundering against Martin in the big 25. Okay, so we're gonna take the rook, king moves. We can't take the queen because then when he takes back, we're just gonna lose, so we're just gonna play. I'm just gonna go back to g4, you know, stop the checks, and I want to attack this knight, but either square I go to is covered by the queen, and I don't want to risk that. So maybe if I just move my king somewhere up or something like that. And yeah, okay, that was a big mistake, but maybe if I go up, he won't take, so let's do that. Okay, he took the rook. Yeah, that was a big mistake by me. So I guess now we're moving on to two rooks.
If you are enjoying this video, consider subscribing and liking the video, or else Larry will pay you a visit at exactly 3:24 a.m. tomorrow morning. All right, thank you. Okay,
two rooks against Martin here. Gonna try and be a bit more careful than last game. Obviously, don't want to be blundering my rooks to a fork. So we're just gonna play king f2 here, you know, double the rooks up on the c file. This pawn is weak, it's only defended by the queen, so I'm just gonna take it, honestly. And okay, he doesn't do anything about that. Well, he couldn't because the queen couldn't move anywhere anyways, so I'm gonna take this bishop. And okay, so bishop to f6, that does give away a queen, but if I take and he takes back, I only have a rook left to work with. So I don't know if that's actually the best idea there, so maybe I'll just like play a waiting king move. Okay, he does end up taking the rook anyways. Maybe I should have pulled it back, but that's all right. We're just gonna take the queen, and now the king moves up to f7. He could have gone to e7, but I guess he decided to go to f7. Now the question is, where do I put this rook? Because this is obviously, well, the only rook I have left after I gave up the rook for the queen. Was that a good trade? Actually no, I gave up the rook for the bishop and the queen. Was that a good trade? I'm not quite sure. So I'm just gonna pull the rook back and try not to blunder my rook to like a pin on the king. Like, let's say for instance my king was on f2 and my rook found its way to e3, then obviously bishop to d4, and we're just losing. So I'm gonna try and keep my king and rook off of the dark squares, and we should be fine. So I'm just gonna move the king back. Actually no, I want to attack this pawn on b7. Obviously I can't play bishop b2 or rook b2 because then the bishop takes, so we're just gonna play rook to c7. Okay, pawn gets pushed. We're just gonna take this free pawn, and now the knight comes out. Not too scary. Obviously we don't have anything free, so we're just gonna go ahead and I was thinking of attacking the knight, but then this check comes out, and it's a little bit scary, but I'm gonna play it anyways. Okay, yeah, the check does come out. Not the check I was expecting on d4, but check on e5 nonetheless. And I'm just gonna drop back to e2. There's no checks that fork the king and the rook, so we should be fine there. And now the question is, how do I transfer this position into a win? And I don't know, but there's a weak pawn on e6. The problem is I can't attack it anyway, because this and the knight takes, and then this, the king or the knight or the bishop can take, and that's a big no-no. So for now, I'm just gonna try and see how best I can attack this pawn, because it's the only undefended piece in this entire position. So we're just gonna go over. Okay, to attack this pawn, I need to get my rook to this square or this square. But for now, we're just gonna bring the rook back. I feel like that's just the best plan. Okay, and the bishop comes here to g5, attacking the rook. Just gonna swing the rook over to g1. The knight comes, blocks the attack. So we can't take this knight obviously because it's defended by the pawn. But king d3 seems solid, trying to invade my king in, maybe take the e6 pawn. Problem is I don't know if d3 blunders a fork. Let's actually calculate here. d3, check, go here. This could check, but then I take this. So let's go here, king d3. Okay, yeah, as I calculated, that check comes out. And now I can go here. And this check doesn't fork because the knight blocks the rook. So let's play king d4. Yeah, bishop here, but that doesn't do anything because I can just take the bishop. But if I take the bishop, then there's this check. No, if I take the bishop, yeah, there's this check or this check, but neither work because the king moves if g4 and the rook takes if d1. So we're just gonna take the bishop for free. Yeah, and the check, but the king can just move and back to d4, you know, trying to invade. Okay, and now the king does come to f7, you know, guarding this pawn. We can't go here anyways because the knight covers. I really want to find a way to just attack the position. Like, the position is like, in spite of Martin being, you know, 250 rated, this position is actually very solid by him. Like, everything is defended, so it's gonna be tricky. Okay, we can give a check here, so why not? And now the rook can't really do anything here. Yeah, as I said, everything is defended, so I just have to kind of move back until Martin eventually makes a blunder. Okay, rook to c8 comes out, and it's probably trying to get a check on c4, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm just gonna attack the pawn that's on a7. Yeah, the check comes out, but I can just move back, and this check, I'm not too bothered. I can go here, and there's not much more checks. Yeah, there's another check that comes out, but we just move over and we're just fine. Okay, ooh, pawn to d4. Martin's trying to push the pawn and promote, but I definitely can't let him do that. So I'm gonna play probably play rook a7 and then go behind the pawn and see if I can stop it. I don't know if that's proper, but let's try that. Okay, check, and we're just gonna go here and try and, ooh, okay, pawn push. That's a check. I think here is best. Okay, and then we can take the rook for free. Okay, now he plays this. It defends the pawn, but I'm just gonna go here and just try and not let the knights like allow the pawn to push. So, ooh, king to e5. I could play rook to ah and attack the knight, or I could play this and check the king, but then the king comes down most likely, and that's not ideal. So I'm just gonna play rook a8. Okay, there's a check that comes out, but we can take the pawn, so it's not too bad. Another check, but we're just gonna go to c4, and now there's no more checks because the king's right up close to the knight. So I could take this knight or I could take this knight, and the answer is, which one do I want to take? Or sorry, the question is, which one do I want to take? I feel like taking this is better. Yeah, let's take this one. Ooh, okay, the rook comes over, and now I can take this knight for free. Check. Let's just go to b6, attack the rook. He does move the rook to defend it. And now we just need to like get our king in the game and try and just attack these weak pawns, and hopefully he'll just blunder his rook and we'll win. So king to b5 seems solid. Does rook the move the rook over, and we're just gonna attack the h6 pawn. Okay, rook comes over. We can gobble this pawn up for free. That's a check. Not too worried. We can move the king over. Another check. And yeah, this is pretty much what you would expect from Martin. In the end game, you know, when he's up a pawn, should be pushing his pawns. He ends up giving a check. And yeah, we should just be able to win this if we're very careful. So we're gonna go behind this pawn. Okay, he does defend it, so we're gonna have to go back maybe. Okay, he follows me. That's crazy. Okay, let's just go back again. Okay, pushes the pawn, and as you can see, the eval bar just skyrockets up. So this is a winning position. Once I find the right moves, we're gonna bring the king over. Pawn gets pushed. No worries, we can take. Another pawn gets pushed. We can just move the king down. Take this pawn. Take this pawn. And yeah, we should just be able to get a checkmate. Check on g4. Cut the king off. Cut the king off even more with the rook. And then we're gonna play king to e6 and just kind of follow the king into the corner, and we deliver checkmate. So yeah, it took 2 rooks to beat Martin. That's actually not too bad. So yeah,